gotten so bad because 2 years after we broke up, I was still there. He had moved on, but I was still stalking his page. I wanted him back. I was trying. I would do anything to get him back. I remember I went to a homecoming at State, and this is what the enemy does. He will really cause us to be in a place where we hold on to these relationships. And he walked past me as if he didn't see me, because I know he saw me, because I came to be seen, okay? So he walked past me, and then he went around the club, and then I came back around, and he had a shirt that I bought him. This is 2 years after we broken up. Like, I still wanted him, but that's neither here nor there. And he was just like, my future bought me this shirt. He knew he did not want a relationship with me, but he was willing to string me along for the ride. And I was letting him string me along because I had this idea of what I wanted, and I was going to get it by any means necessary. So I lost myself trying to get him back. And then
I made myself think that like everything was wrong. That was wrong with him. Mm-hmm. He made it seem like it was my fault, and I just took it. I was just like, you know, it is my fault. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
You really lose yourself in relationships, but when you end up getting naked with somebody, you're giving them the ability to hurt you, right?
I shouldn't have felt bad about it. That I did feel bad about it. Like he like made it was like I wasn't supposed to feel bad about it, but I ended up feeling bad about it, and I would find myself like apologizing, and then afterwards I'd be like, why am I apologizing?
Yeah.
So
very toxic.
I apologize for everything.
Yeah. Anybody got time for that? So the water, as we know, is God, right? So everybody has a little God in them because he created us in his image. But this water also represents the people. We're going to put a little bit in it that says, God knows my heart. And the ones who have God all down their timeline, but know God doggone well, you ain't living for God for real. Don't you hate that, right? Then we got some vinegar. We could do a little science project. The vinegar is for those that are bitter, angry, hateful, revengeful, unforgiving, because bitter, what I'm trying to say, vinegar is bitter, okay? So you go pour a lot of that, because people don't even know they're bitter until something happens in life, right? Pour enough, okay. And then we have peroxide. As we know, peroxide is an oxidation, and that means it's something that loses electrons, right? So this is when you lose things in life. You lose your identity, you lose your virginity, you lose yourself, trying to make sure that you stay with this guy who really doesn't want to be with you, but you know for sure this is it. This is the one that God said, because I know God told me a lot of people, and I'm like, that I couldn't have read at the time, right? So you're losing things in life. You lose your scholarship, maybe you lose a friend, you lose a parent, you lose brain cells because you're getting high every day. Okay, y'all don't want to be honest. I was getting high in college. And then I lost direction, and I lost my desire for a relationship. The salt is just for emphasis because people be like, you salty, right? They salty, he salty, whatever the case may be. And then, did y'all know when you mix peroxide and vinegar that it creates a toxic acid?
No, I didn't.
You didn't know that. Did you know that when you mix vinegar and peroxide together, it causes corrosion, which is buildup, and it causes what was once strong to be made weak. In life, when we get into relationships, you may have had a good relationship with God, right? And then as soon as you mix these two things together, it'll weaken that strong relationship. We hence making the relationship God, or making him God, and God has to remove him. Or you had a really great family structure, and all of a sudden when people start telling you what you're doing is wrong, now you don't want to talk to them, now you want to stay away from them because you don't want them to question your relationship and what you got going on. You're trying to keep your little safe spot between you and Chad, but it's not really that safe because it's toxic. It's odorless and you can't sense it. You can't sense that something is bad is happening until one day when something bad happens in your life. You fail, you got to get held back, or something bad just happens and it mixes up the chemical imbalance, right? So what happens when that happens? This is an unpredictable relationship, being in a toxic relationship. Because as soon as something bad happens, what was once settled starts to come to the surface. And it starts to spill out of them. And the thing about toxic relationships is you don't know nothing is wrong until it starts spilling out. Then that one day he hits you. What started off as you not texting back turns into him beating on you, turns into him keeping you away from your family, turns into y'all getting married and he's isolating you from the world. And you get empty. because I had this all the way to the top, but now the water's down here. Now you're empty because everything in you it fills out, it flows out of you. And if it's corrosive for you on the inside, what makes you think it's not going to corrode the person that you're with? So what was once strong begins to corrode what's happening outside of you. You start not doing well in school. You just give up on school, because when my boyfriend broke up with me when I was in college, he broke up with me during my senior year exams. That is the most heartless thing you can do to somebody, because at this point I'm not thinking about school. I'm thinking about how to get you back or how to get over my emotions. I didn't want to come out my room. I had the windows closed. My friend was like, I would do your homework for you because you got to graduate. But I was so devastated. So it corroded me, and it corroded my schoolwork as well.
That's a good friend.
Then, you know, we got this. Then people date with soul ties, right? Soul ties will change you. Change the contents and the color of what's going on inside you. I want to do girl and guy because I don't want people to be like, he just did the guy. Men and women have soul ties, okay? So, we can put a little bit of red in here, and we can put a little bit of red in here. What happens with soul ties can be ungodly, and they can also be godly. So there can be good soul ties and bad soul ties. And if you can look, I'm going to try to see a little. See how that has like a light tint color for both of them? Light tint. When you sleep with somebody that has slept with somebody that has slept with somebody else, everybody that they slept with, you slept with. So if Johnny slept with Tina, Tina has also slept with Samantha, whoever Johnny slept with, it's all in him. And then we wonder why we start looking like somebody else. Why you start acting like somebody else, and you don't understand what's going on. But over time, the contents of you begin to change. I couldn't stand when my mom was like, Tia, what is going on with you? You're acting like somebody else. No, I'm still the same person. Right? Right? Y'all never had soul ties?
No, I agree.
See, what happens is,
What happens?
I was going to say, you know, I don't really spend too much time like that. I didn't tell my mother too much about what I've done.
Your mom didn't know? My mom just knew. I was like, how?
Okay, so
who's telling you my business, ma'am? And tell them to stop.
Conversations about it. I already thought she did.
Your mama always knows.
She might pray to him, but she ain't gonna.
Ain't gonna nothing?
She don't bring it to me like that.
Okay, I'm gonna stir her up. She has soul ties too. Let me just give her another bit of color. So what I want to say is toxic relationships turn into codependent ones. And the soul tie can be godly or ungodly. This is where your soul ties open up for a person and they begin to pour into you what's in them. So y'all also understand that soul ties is more, or sex is more than just a moment of pleasure, right?
Amen.
Sex is more spiritual than anything else. Because you think you're just sleeping with him, but there's no such thing as sex with no strings attached. There's no such thing. Because in the spiritual realm, something's happened because that's something that God ordained, and the enemy always wants to pervert what God has made beautiful. So sex is a great thing. However, when you do it outside of covenant, that's when you get ungodly soul ties. And soul ties is when you know you're not supposed to do certain things, but this person is really talking in your ear, and you're like, I gotta do what he says do because I want to make the relationship work. So you know you're not supposed to send that nude picture, but you sent that nude picture. Or you're not supposed to make that sex tape, but you made that sex tape. I made a sex tape in school. And if you ask me where it is, I have no idea where it is. So for a long time, I can just share this with you. For a long time, I was scared to operate in purpose because anytime somebody sees you growing up, they'll always try to bring up your past. And I was scared that somebody was going to like just play my sex tape one day and I'd be like, I'm redeemed by the blood of the Lord. But like, and I made a couple, and I was very, very bound because I just wanted to please a guy. Like if you say I'm gonna be saved, then I trust you. His friends had, like a lot of people had it, so they saw all my precious little goods, but God has redeemed me. Okay, Amen. Okay, so when you sleep with a person with the open portal, it's unclean. So you literally become someone else off of one interaction, and a piece of everyone else pours back and forth. So she's not that bad. This is the good girls. Sorry guys, okay? And then he ends up coming and sleeping with you. He is dirty in the soul. He pours that all into you. And some guys empty themselves out in you and leave you there to pick up the pieces, right? So this is now how she looks. You turn into a dark person. You're not yourself. I don't even know who you are anymore. You ever had that conversation? Who are you? I don't even know, Mom. So after you leave this relationship, you can become darker. So after you had the soul ties, after you've been toxic, then you have those wounded relationships, right? So I can see what I'm doing. So let's see how we're going to do this. We're going to pour some. He got saved a little bit. Let's give him some water. God cleansed him a little bit. But he still ain't serious. You know how people go to the altar and they be like, God, I want to live right. But it's still dirty. Okay. So we're going to back this up a minute. Okay. So then we have those wounded relationships. I thought this was funny. Don't judge me. The gold part. Because we think our stuff is good. Y'all don't judge me. Okay. Let's get back serious. Okay. Speaker mode. Okay. So you have that one where you've been heartbroken. Right? Heartbreak hurts, doesn't it? I remember this lady, she went to the hospital and she was like, I feel sick, doctor. I can't get up. I feel fatigued. I feel this. I feel that. And he like did all these tests and he was like, you're just heartbroken. Oh. Heartbroken is a real thing. Listen, I wanted to die. I wanted to just be done because last year I shared that I had an abortion and he left me. How could you leave me? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was the mother of your dead child. Like, I was manipulative because when you start dating like this, you start dipping into witchcraft because, you know, witchcraft is rebellion and manipulation and trying to get people to do what you want them to do. Okay. Yeah. I was a master witch. Failures in life. Maybe you didn't get what you wanted to get. Okay? You have father wounds. Your father left you. Your father never was there. Or you may have mother wounds. Your mama never told you she loved you. I remember I was in college and I had a friend. Her mama never told her she loved her. And I was like, that's really weird. My mom tells me I love her every time I get off the phone. You've never seen a successful relationship. So these are all going in you. And people don't see these nails in you because you cover it up with nice clothes, nice cars, and a good job. My God. Okay. Your mom and dad only had sex to have you. So you're only here because they slept together and it was an accident. You weren't even supposed to be here. Or they weren't even together. Or they told you that you're not workers. You gotta sleep with all of these women in order to be a real man. Right? Or you'll never make it out of the hood. But y'all in college, right? So it worked. Whoop, whoop, whoop. But you only here because you want to prove somebody wrong. Ooh. That I can make it. I can make it without you. I can do this. I can do that. So you got all these nails. But then with the nails, you also have picked at some wounds so long, generational curses in your life, right? Now you got a Band-Aid over it. Bless you. When it really didn't fix nothing, you just like to cover stuff up. How many of us like to have been in a situation where we like to cover stuff up? Y'all may not be in a abusive relationship, but they'll cover it up with makeup and say that they hit their space on a doorknob. Who are you playing with, girl? I know he punched you because I saw how he talked to you. But you try to cover it up and you were just like, it's only that one time. He doesn't talk to me like that all the time, but one is enough. Right? So like I said earlier, you only allow people to see you like this when you're naked. And then you give them the ability to trust them. And if you trust somebody, you give them the ability to hurt you. That's what they say, right? So they start pulling out your wounds and pulling out your word curses because they want to help you. But they don't got no license. They don't got no degree to help you with these things. So they still do it. So you have the people that says, I'll never leave you. But then they walk out the door. Or you ended up getting pregnant and you already have a father wound and that person says, I'm gonna help you take care of that baby. But then they leave. That's my story. I had a lot of people walk out of my life, and then I had people that I opened up to that promised they'd never leave me or hurt me, and then they ended up doing this very thing that they promised they wouldn't do. So next thing you know, they just start pulling out all of these wounds. Promise you it'll get better. Promise you you'll never find nobody like me. I'm here for you. I know your family don't like you, but I'll love you all my life. This is a good one. Girl, I'm gonna marry you. We gonna live together. You gonna have all my babies. Come on. And they lying. Like, you lying. Sir, you are lying. You are lying, right? And then they created a mess and then leave you there to clean it up. I'm gonna say it again like Pastor said. They create a mess and they leave you there to clean it up. Because when you were by yourself, you were good. I was good without you. Then you started telling me that you could help me with my wounds and I trusted you. And now you leave me to bleed out. Right? And when you like this, God ain't giving you no relationship. But a lot of us want a relationship just like this. You want a relationship toxic, you want a relationship wounded, and you want a relationship with soul ties. And then God says no, and he says that relationship isn't for you, but you don't trust him because you want what you want, and you really don't care what God is saying. But you can trust him because he knows this isn't healthy. So when you get to be like this, you have to think, there has to be another way to date. Like, I can't keep dating like this, because if I keep dating like this, I'm going to keep ending up like this. I moved to Chicago with this guy, because he promised me, let me tell you something, the enemy plays on your desire to be married. Okay? So he knows, just like God knows, you want to be married. But he doesn't give you what God wants to give you. He'll give you the counterfeit of it. So this guy was like, I will marry you. I'm going to give you a ring. Just move up here to Chicago and be with me if you love me. Now, I knew I didn't love him, but it was an opportunity to get away from home because I was tired of my mom, right? So I moved out there. Hot mess, okay? He was verbally abusive, so like he would like taunt me and say things to me, and I was just taking it, but he promised me a ring. I didn't believe him. As far as Jesus is coming back, I didn't believe him, but I was like, you promised me something that I want. I want to be married. And if you're going to marry me, let's do this, right? Dumb. Young, dumb, and full of cum. Okay, so...
I don't know.
They weren't ready.
So what happens is, and I was on the bed and I was crying. And I wasn't crying because we were breaking up. I was crying because another relationship failed again. I was like, okay, God, they told me about you. Let me just try you. Like, let me see if everything that they're saying about you, let me see if it's true, right? But how many of you know dating God's way is not always the easiest way?
Mm-hmm.
Because what God does is he has to empty you out. And this is a very humbling process. God emptying you and turning you upside down, turning your life upside down. And God can't, well, he could, but he's not going to fill you up in this state until he fills you the holes, right? So he begins to tell you, white Play-Doh, because God isn't going to cover you up, make like a rag doll. I was like, what color should I get? White, the cup's white. Couldn't get red or anything. So he begins to fill you. He begins to tell you, I love you. You got to bear with me because it's a take a process. Because he's a molder. We are the potter. Well, he's the potter. We are the clay. And he has to mold us. So he starts telling you things that you are accepted. You are my child and you are accepted into the beloved, right? Things that guys try to promise us. God was the only sure thing that I could find, because I started to realize that God was the only thing that was constant in my life. When I was hurt, and he was the only one that was there for me. All of my family tried to be there. I didn't want their help. I needed something greater than what they were trying to give me. How much time I got left?
10, well, like 12.
12 minutes? Oh, what? I must have been having fun. Time flies. Okay. 13 minutes? Is this real for y'all? Like, have y'all noticed this even in being in college? Yeah. I'm trying to fill it in. So God is the potter and we are the clay.
Yes.
And he begins to tell us all the things that we need to hear. That we are loved. That he'll never leave us or forsake us. And his word is true. Like, I have been rocking with God since 2015. And he has not left me yet. Even in them nighttime hours when I'm like, God, I want a man. Like, let's just be honest. I just want somebody to hold me. I just want somebody to love me, God. Like, and he says, daughter, I love you.
Amen.
And I can do more for you than a man can do for you. But because I desire marriage, I believe that God is going to fill that desire for me. But he doesn't have to. And let me tell you when God started giving me prophecies about marriage, relationships, is when I told God, if I never get married, I'll be okay. And I'd rather live for you than live for the world and do what they want me to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, when I told God that at the beginning of this year, I got so many prophetic words about a husband, I stopped worrying about it. I started letting God take care of everything that I needed, right? Okay, so I think I filled in all the holes. So then what God will do, now he wants to fill you up. That's okay, because it takes works, okay? What he began, he will finish, but he cleans you up. And when you have a relationship with God and you do it God's way, no water, don't wet my computer. Okay. He fills you up. And when you feel like this, no man can come in and tell you you're beautiful and you just fall for it. My dad's already told me. And I'm not arrogant, I'm full. You don't complete me, you compliment me.
Ooh.
And it's an overflow, and he'll go back and fill in the holes because God is good like that, okay? Let me just fill it in for purposes of the demonstration. So when God can, I'm not fighting with you. Y'all get the point, okay? Okay, so he'll step in and he turns you upside down, which I already said, and he fills you. He begins to fill you with acceptance. He begins to fill you with his love. He begins to fill you with his compassion. He begins to fill you with your purpose and his joy and acceptance, contentment and stability. And when that happens, you don't need somebody else to fill you up. You just compliment what God is doing. You are not the cake. You just the icing on it, right? And we have to stop living like that because sometimes we live like the relationship is all in, like we only are created to have a relationship. No, we're not created just for a relationship. He created us for community, but he created you to worship him. Mm-hmm. And if you don't worship him first, he's not going to give you something that's going to take the worship away. Right?
Yeah, right.
So when you date God's way, you can recognize when a person has soul ties. Have you ever, when you date an empty person, you realize you have to give so much of yourself to them? Why? Because they're empty. So you're pouring out a whole lot just to get them to feel good about themselves. And when somebody has holes in them, that's tricky to a person that is full because you look like you're full, but what are you full of? And two, you look like you're full, but slowly you're leaking out. This is the ones that, say, I want to live right for God, but you still got your own issues, which we all do. But I can tell when you really ain't serious about it because you're fruit. I don't have anything leaking out of me. God has fully restored me, but you're still leaking out in areas that I'm already restored from. I don't want that in my life, and that's my choice. When I'm whole, I decide what I want in my life. I decide who I want in my life. You can't make me want you. You can't say the right things and make me say, okay, I'll just go for it just to see what happens. No. I get my instructions from God. If he says no, that's just that. I don't try to coerce God into, please make it right. Please make him the one. Like, you can beg all you want. But sometimes God will give it to you just for you to be like, you know how a parent give you something just for you to be quiet? He'd be like, here. And then you learn from it. He's like, I'm going to work that out for you good. Because I tried to give it to you in instructions, but you wanted it in experiences. Right? So when you're equally yoked, when you're trying to find somebody, you find them from what's inside of you. It becomes like a mirror, and you can tell when someone isn't right. And when you start spending time with God, you begin to work on your discernment. You begin to work on hearing his voice, and you don't have to be in a relationship to find out who they really are. Like, you can see it and smell them from a mile away. And that's how I want to be in a relationship. Like, guys come, I'd be like, no, thank you. And I used to lie all the time. Like, I got a man. I'm not lying to you no more. I'm not interested. What you gonna do? Fight me? Okay, so not many have looked to Jesus and his bride as a couple goal because he loves us so much that he laid down his life. But we want the guys that's claim they bad, but you ain't willing to lay down your life for me. You're not willing to give it all up you're not willing to give up. You lay down your life. You don't want to give up your friends. You don't want to give up your cell phone. You want to give up partying. You don't want to give up none of this, but you're trying to be with me. You won't even lay down that stuff. So what made me think you're going to lay down your life and marry me? I don't trust you as far as I can throw you, sir. So he doesn't want us to be perfect but mature and having an established relationship with him. And it's best to have a solid relationship with God before looking for somebody else to love, because if not, you'll stumble into dating the first 3 ways. So to get something you've never had before, you got to do something you've never done before. Have any of you gone on a dating sabbatical and said, I'm not going to date for a while? I'm just not going to date. And the enemy, even when Jesus was coming out of the wilderness, when he was coming out of his fast, that's when he was tempted the greatest. When you are just about to get to that relationship that God wants you to get in, that's when the enemy tempts you the greatest. When it's almost over, when you're almost to the end, that's when the temptation feels the strongest. Now, you done been celibate for 3 years and then you go to his house just for coffee. I don't know why you're there for coffee, but you go to his house for coffee and then all of a sudden you fall into sin. After 3 years, 10 years, because you wanted to prove to yourself that you were stronger than what you really were, right? So focus on schooling your relationship with God. And if you are in a relationship and you see yourself in the first 3 ways, take a step back and ask yourself, what do you want more? Do you want God or that relationship? And if you say you want that relationship more, you have a serious soul tie to that person. And you need to let it go. I'm just going to tell you the truth. You need to dump him, leave him, or whatever. So stop dating until you're overflow with God and you know who he is. That's how you renew your mind. I'm going to tie the conference into here.
Yeah.
So before you run the risk of pouring out and running out, neglecting spending time with God, which is what we do when we're in a relationship, when we're not strong, we make idols of the relationships when we don't do that. So you have to kill your flesh. Stop dating the way your flesh wants you to date and start dating God's way. And how do you do that? By reading his word and seeing what he wants out of your relationship. And this is good. Y'all listening? Okay. Renew your mind by opening up to another possibility of dating. Every time he pokes you, you listening? Okay. Every time he pokes you, there's a hole that's being created. And it's a wound that may be pleasurable, but when he pokes you outside of covenant, it's a wound of no self-control manifested. My God, that's what the Lord told me to tell y'all. When he pokes you, I'm talking about sex. When y'all have sex outside of covenant, it is self-control, no self-control manifesting, because you can see fruits. If he's always tempting you and always wanting you to have sex, that's a way of you knowing this is not the relationship with me, especially when you're trying to remain holy and pure. And last but not least, when you date broken and you date wounded, you take anything, even the promises you don't believe. That was my issue. So I have some scriptures for you so that you can renew your mind, okay, and feed your soul. I have Psalms 37:4. When you delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you the desires of your heart. And we get it construed because we be like, okay, God, I want a cake. Give me a cake. No. God will pour into you the kind of cake that he wants you to have, and you'll start desiring that, and that's what you begin to attract. I did not know that what I wanted one time in relationships was completely opposite of what I want now. I wanted a dreadhead that was 6 feet tall and dark skinned with a body